Hello YouTube, this is Robert Ness 816 and today I'm going to be going over a bunch of different things with these Traxxas Bandits. Which one's good for racing, which one isn't good for racing. The platform in general isn't good for racing, but if you're just someone looking to bash around or whatever, or just maybe club racing or whatever, then it's a decent platform actually. So out of the box, you're going to notice that both the VXL and the XL5, I did that totally backwards, both of them have issues with understeering quite badly, and that's done on purpose because these are geared towards mainly beginners. So understeer is a bad thing for handling, but it's a good thing for stability. And with the nature of the Bandit, it's really made for someone just getting into the hobby, at least I think so. And so basically understeer is when you're trying to steer the buggy left or right, and instead of steering, it kind of pushes instead of steering. So that is an issue with weight transfer and suspension and tires. So all three of those things combined will make up for a buggy that just does not want to go in the direction that you want it to go to. And that's something that Traxxas should maybe address with it. In my opinion, the Bandit is due for an update. It would benefit greatly from newer shock towers, front and rear, a new chassis pan, basically to bring the battery up forward a little bit more to give you the option to adjust the weight transfer of the buggy more, and also newer shock towers with more adjustability with the top holes. That would really help out. Alright, so getting into what I've done to correct the understeer issue. So I haven't replaced the front tires yet. I'm replacing these with J Concepts green compound ribbed front tires, so those will help out with cornering and dirt. As far as the suspension itself goes, I've changed the front springs out to Traxxas /5857 front springs, and these are the stock springs that come on a slash. With the slash, I find these springs to be way too soft, and on the Bandit I find them to be perfect. So basically you get the same amount of shock absorption or springiness there when coming off of bumps, but as far as cornering goes, these springs allow the Bandit to transfer the weight from the back to the front really well, and you end up with a front end that is much more compliant. Now with these springs you would need to change your shock oil, so I've changed both the front and rear shock oils. So stock, these come with 30 weight shock oil. I put 20 weight in the front and 25 weight in the rear. So the thought process is with shock oil is that it actually does act like a spring in some sense. So if you put thick shock oil in there, it will not allow your suspension to really move in the way that the springs want to move. So basically it'll kind of act as like a binder and stiffen up your suspension in some way. So the thinner shock oil will allow for the suspension to move around the way it wants to. So by putting thinner shock oil in the rear, you're allowing the back of the buggy to go and follow corners. And what this is doing is it's actually taking weight off of the rear end. And by putting thinner weight oil in the front, it's actually allowing, when the weight transfers to the front, it's allowing the front end to now dig into the surface a lot more, improving your cornering. So you always want to have a slightly stiffer setup in the rear than in the front with anything that's two-wheel drive and an older platform like this. So the cornering on this Bandit is now much better than what it was. When I get those tires, that will finally solve at least the last inkling of understeer that I have. And mainly the rear bias, as far as the weight on the Bandit goes, is typical for an older design like this. So it's not terrible, but it's something that, at least compared to today's buggies, is it should be corrected. And that's why I think the chassis pan on this should be updated to allow for the battery to sit a little bit further forward. And as far as the design goes, I mean, anyone who's looked at a Rustler or a Bandit knows the design. So the steering servo is basically mounted lengthwise, and it can be mounted horizontally, and that will basically allow for the battery to get moved up forward, or it will give you the option to move the battery further forward. Yeah, so it's not a terrible design, but it needs to be. It could definitely stand for an update. As far as working on one of these goes, it's super simple, and that's really one of the reasons why I love it, because they come apart so easily. But other than that, though, the design itself needs to be improved. So yeah, the two-wheel drive Slash doesn't have that issue because it has a newer chassis design with that option, move the battery forwards and backwards. But the Bandit and Rustler definitely need a chassis pan update along with front and rear shock towers, which would also benefit the Slash since they use the same shock towers. Um, Alright, so simple improvements. We're talking, I don't know, maybe $18 for all of this stuff here. So these springs came on my Slash, so I just basically experimented with it, discovered it worked great, and then I ordered a second set for the VXL. The VXL has its own set of issues though, because it is so much more powerful than the standard one. So this one wants to pull wheelies a lot, and really the only way you can fix that after you adjust the suspension is just learn how to use better throttle control. That's it. After you master that, then this Bandit will actually handle just as good as this one will. The advantage with this one too though is that you have adjustable turnbuckles now, so this one would be better for club racing, believe it or not. And you do have the option to change out that brushed motor for like a stock class brushed motor, whereas with this one you have to buy a new ESC end motor, whereas this one will kind of save you money. So yeah, it's whatever you want to do. This one's more or less something super cheap, and this one was kind of fun because I turned something cheap and made it into something that handles really well. So as far as the motor goes, I'm running in this is the Traxxas Stinger. This is a 20-turn motor. This one's been out for as long as the Bandit's been around for. It's a pretty good motor. It's not bad. Good reliability, decent torque, decent top end. Not going to blow your socks off, but for the smaller track that I race on, it's actually perfect. And the one issue with the Stinger is that you can't run it for more than 30 minutes, because otherwise, besides the risk of burning it out, you also will notice that the magnets, when they get hot, they will lose some of their power, and therefore your consistency or torque will be decreased. So these motors can't be run for more than 30 minutes. It's definitely not advisable. You can run them with 7-cell packs, so they're more than up to that task, and I run them with these 5,000 milliamp packs, both of these buggies actually. They run perfectly fine. These are equivalent to a 2S pack, by the way, so you'll get about 30 minutes of runtime on a track with these things. Figured 20 to 30 minutes of runtime, and they're really nice batteries, so yeah, they run great in the Bandit. Different motors that I've tried. So I have the Titan here. The Titan is a great motor. It's really torquey, has great top end. You can really play around to gearing on this too to get some really good top end. In fact, it will keep up with 13-turn 540 motors, believe it or not. So it has really good top end and torque. So really nothing to complain about. Plus with that built-in cooling fan, you can really run these things for a half hour or whatever, and they won't get super hot so long as you know how to gear it properly. This particular motor I've got a few hundred runs on, and it is holding up absolutely wonderfully. This motor right here has about 20 or 30 runs on it and really nothing wrong with it. The key is to clean these out with plastic safe contact cleaner, and then after you dry it off or blow it out or whatever, then you would put a drop of oil on the bushings, and you're going to use a good quality oil like this, not WD-40. Alright, so other motors that have failed me. So I've gone through one of these dynamite motors. That's why I took down a video on these, because these simply they don't hold up for racing use or even bashing really. So the issue with these is not that they overheat, but that the commutators or the brushes on these things just can't stand the abuse of, I guess, just using them. Maybe it's these battery packs. The 7-cell pack is maybe too much for these, or maybe they're just not that good of a motor in general. But when these die on me, they never overheat. I can always touch them. I leave my hand on them for a long period of time. It's always the commutators on these things that fail, and the brushes that fail too. So really weird that it happens, but yeah, I can't recommend these anymore. good top end, good torque or whatever, good consistency when they do run, but the fact that they keep dying on me due to the commutators burning up is making me think that they can't handle a 7-cell pack. So the Titan and the Stinger can both handle a 7-cell pack without an issue. Like I said, just keep in mind with the Stinger though that you can't run it for more than like say 20 minutes or so because it will overheat on you eventually. It's basically a Mabuchi motor. That's who makes both of these motors. Traxxas won't admit that, but if you look on the back of these motors, you can see the little M symbol there. So Mabuchi makes the Titan and they also make the Stinger. If you look at a lot of Tamiya torque tuned or sport tuned motors, you'll see they have the same back end. So these are Mabuchi motors made to whatever spec that Traxxas wanted. So yeah, definitely Mabuchi makes a sick motor. They're not the most powerful things out there, but they just last and they keep going. So the next thing, I do actually want to try a Tamiya torque tune and sport tune motor to see how it compares to these. I have a feeling it's going to be very similar, but you know, whatever, they're cheap enough to experiment with. So these little Chinese motors here, these are really hit or miss. You can get these on eBay for $16 shipped. So these have the ability to be a very good motor, at least the higher turn ones do. The lower turn ones I find they overheat and burn up pretty quickly, so I wouldn't recommend them. Even when you gear them conservatively, like I had the 14 turn version of this thing combined with a, what do I have in this thing, a 13 tooth pinion gear, and it still burned up on me. So, and even then it was running like a bat out of hell. But yeah, it's just they don't, the lower turn ones just don't hold up. These, however, this 21 turn has been flawless. It has more torque than the Stinger does. Same top end speed, but definitely more torque. So with the Stinger, when it has enough grip, it will actually pull the front wheels off the ground a little bit like that, but we're not talking like anything crazy. Whereas this one, when it has enough grip, it will make the Bandit wheelie. So definitely a difference in power there. Consistency wise, you can run these for about a half hour or so and they will hold up pretty well. The Stinger, on the other hand, will lose some of its torque if you run it for more than a half hour, so definitely try to keep it around that 20-minute mark or so, and you'll be fine. But so the reason why I haven't been running this motor is because the reliability of these is in question. So when you got a good one, they're great. When you don't, then ugh. So this 19-turn motor, this one right here, this one, from running it one time, had the epoxy come off the armature and it actually locked up the motor. So that was interesting. I've never had that happen before in my entire life with anything RC related. So yeah, huge chunks of epoxy came off the armature and it locked up the motor. I came out to see what the issue was, and well, all this blue stuff started coming out of the back end bell, and I was like, what the fuck? So took it apart, found out what the issue was, and yeah, so I cleaned off the rest of the epoxy on the inside. It still runs, it still works pretty good, but you know, I don't know what else is going to happen. There's more epoxy in the front for balancing, and I don't know if that's going to come off, but yeah. So anyway, I messaged the seller. They sent me a new one. I haven't tried this one out yet. It does appear that they do some type of running at the factory where they make these things, but yeah, so these are unfortunately the only type of modified motor you can get, with the others being from Tamiya. So these are sold under just about every no-name you've never heard of. Ghoul RC sells them. Reedy is a name that you have heard of, and they sell these motor under the Radeon name, and you're going to pay another $10 on top of what this company charges, whatever this actually is. No company. No company name whatsoever. Model Sport. That's not a company, that's just something that they threw on there. But anyways, these motors are the only thing you can get as far as modified brushed cans today, which really sucks. I really miss the days when you could get a Trinity Speed Gems motor for $30 and it will last you forever and ever and ever. I used to run those things just that's really all I used to run was the Speed Gems and the Orion core modified and core stock motors. Those things were just fantastic, and yeah, never had an issue with them once. These, on the other hand, are just they suck. So with the 14 turn motors, they burn up because the end bells on them distort and it causes the armature to actually rub against the magnet. And that heats up the motor and destroys it. And you'll basically notice your top speed will be cut in half almost instantly, and you'll hear a nice little rubbing sound inside the motor, followed by smoke. So yeah, interesting. Um, Good motors when you get a good one, bad motors when you get a bad one, and I'm at two 14 turns that died and a 19 turn that had its epoxy come off. So I won't be buying any more of these motors, unfortunately. From any brand that sells them, actually. I won't be buying any more of these motors at all. So I'm going to basically stick with these closed end bell designs. This one too, I'm not going to buy any more of these. So I'm sticking with Mabuchi as far as the closed end bell motors are concerned, because they've just been running flawlessly and I haven't had any issues in them whatsoever. Keep them clean, keep them lubricated, and they will last you forever. Um, yeah, really just, whatever. So anyways, that's really it as far as the Bandit versus the XL5 Bandit versus the VXL for racing purposes. They're both not the best choices to make unless they have like a Bandit specific class or some type of club racing, or if you're on like a super tight budget and you don't want to spend a lot. So this is $269, which is dirt cheap for a brushless setup. This is $159, which is dirt cheap for a brushed setup. And really, with a minimal amount of work, you can get these things to actually handle really well. I mean, any racing platform you buy, you're going to end up buying different shock oils, different springs, different tires, or whatever too. So, it really doesn't matter what you buy. You're going to have to adjust the suspension for your track conditions or for your own personal tastes. And when you get these things set up, they actually do handle pretty darn good. It's just you have to keep in mind that the weight bias with the Bandit is going to be more towards the back, and that has more to do with its design being from 1994. So definitely not a current design by any means, but when it's set up properly, it does actually perform pretty damn good. So that's really it, guys. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments section. I'm going to do another video of just me doing a figure eight out in the back, just to kind of do a comparison there with, anything that you guys might have, to see if you can do the same thing or not. But yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching, guys.